Our I can statement for today is I can use a number line to model integer subtraction. So if you haven't already watched the N2, N3 video on integer addition, I would watch that first because it introduces a lot of the principles that we'll be building on today. Take a moment to review these questions. They're going to help you to remember the rules that we learned for adding integers. Let's review the answers. So, how do we start on the number line? We start with the first number in our number sentence. We always want to make sure that we face the positive direction. So you'll draw a little arrow facing the positive direction over that first number. How do we know when to flip or change our direction of our arrows? Well, when we're reading our number sentence from left to right, anytime we see a negative sign or a subtract sign, that's when we want to flip directions. And this is after the first number. Remember, we always face positive with the first number, and we don't worry about the first number sign. How do we know when to move? Once again, when we're reading from left to right, anytime we see numbers in our number sentence, that lets us know to move forward in the direction that our arrow is currently facing. So if our direction is in the positive direction, we move forward in the positive direction. If our arrow is facing the negatives, then we'll move in the negative direction. And how do we know what our final answer is? Well, after we've followed all of the directions in our number sentence, it's whatever number we end up on. So how we're going to build on these rules is these rules work for subtraction too. The only difference from what we've seen yesterday is it will be possible to have negatives and subtract signs together. Let's take a look at our first example. Positive 7, subtract 12. So we're going to begin at positive 7. And we're facing in the positive direction because that's how we always start. I see a subtract sign, so I'm going to change the direction of my arrow to face the negatives. And now we're going to move 12 steps forward in the negative direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And my result, my final answer, is -5. For this next example, I'm starting at -8. Even though it's a negative number, I always start facing the positive direction. So I am at -8 facing the positive direction. Then I see a subtract sign, so I'm going to flip in the opposite direction, facing the negatives. And then I'm going to move forward in the negative direction 1 space. My final answer is -9. In this example, we're starting at -10 facing the positive direction. I see a subtract sign right here. So that tells me I need to flip directions. And then I see a negative sign right here. So that tells me I need to flip directions again. Then the 2 tells me to move forward in the direction I'm facing, which is positive again, 2 spaces. So my final answer is -8. This is really important to notice because it helps to explain why subtracting a negative is going to give us the same answer as if we just added a positive. That's one of the rules that we'll learn later on, but this gives us evidence as to why that works. Try this one on your own. Unpause the video when you've had a chance to try it on your own. Alrighty, so let's take a look at my answer and my evidence. I got my final answer as 10 in the positives. I started out at +4 facing the positive direction. Then, because of the subtract sign, I flipped. Then, because of the negative sign in front of the 6, I flipped again. Then I moved forward 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and landed at positive 10. If you got the same answer, great job. If not, go back and check your work. All right. Now, this example, we are subtracting 3 different terms. So we're going to take this as a 2-step process. So the first step is going to be adding or subtracting the first 2 terms, and we'll get a result. Then we'll take that result, that answer, and subtract the last term from it. Okay, so first step, we are going to start at 6 in the positive direction. Then, because of the subtract sign, I'm going to change directions. And then because of the negative sign in front of the 3, we're going to change directions again. Now I'm going to move forward 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3. So 9 is the result of my first step. Positive 9. The next step is going to be computing 9 subtract negative 1. So I'm just finishing up the rest of the subtraction problem. But always, 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 when you start the second step, remember that you want to start facing in the positive direction. And just so that it's clear we can see step 1 and step 2, I'm going to do it below the number line. So I am facing in the positive direction, starting at number 9. Then I see a negative sign, so I'm going to flip. Sorry, that was a subtract sign. Now I see the negative sign in front of that 1, so I'm going to flip again. And I'm going to move forward 1 space. And I end up at positive 10. So positive 10 is my final answer. And I just want to add in a side note here. Remember that subtraction is not commutative, meaning we can't subtract the numbers in any order. 6 subtract 3 is not the same as 3 subtract 6. We'll learn a trick a little later that you can use to get around that, but for now just remember that you do want to go in the order stated in the number sentence. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Pause the video now and then unpause when you want to check your result. Alrighty, so the correct answer is negative 4. Here's why. We started out at negative 5 in the positive direction. Since we're subtracting, we flipped, but we only flipped once because there isn't a negative sign in front of that 2. And then I moved forward in the negative direction 2 spaces and landed at negative 7. So red is where I start my second step. I always start facing the positive direction. So negative 7 in the positive direction. I see a subtract sign, so I flip once. Then I see a negative sign, so I flip again, and then I move forward 3 spaces. So I end at negative 4. And you'll want to make sure when you're doing 2-step problems like this, when your little jump marks overlap, you want to make sure that you're looking at the number line below to make sure that you're always counting the correct number of jumps. That concludes our video for today. Remember that you can always rewatch this, pause, stop, as much as you need to make sure that you understand the concept.